was demonstrating some transphobia in the classroom. I had been 3 weeks on this job going, I have no idea how to help you, and I'm the person designated to help. Over the last 2 years, I have learned a great deal because of that experience and the relationship that she maintains with me. So I want you all to welcome Cadence Valentine.
Good afternoon, esteemed faculty and staff, parents, and friends, but mostly, good afternoon to my fellow graduating 20 students. So, I'm going to use my notes because I'm getting very emotional these weeks, so be a little guided. But, so about 2 weeks ago, I got an email from someone who really needs to look up the definition of the term sabbatical. Because when you're on sabbatical, you're not supposed to be doing what you're doing otherwise when you're here. But that person thought that some of you might benefit from some of my words, and that I'd be well conditioned to this event here. Well, I thank you for the honor. I truly do. It does mean a lot to me. But I warn you, you're not going to get the usual new beginnings clap. Not for me. You wouldn't want it. You wouldn't expect it. So that's not why I'm here. Strap in, take notes, and yes, this will be on the quiz. So we are gathered here today to join these two men. Okay, I'm kidding. I mean, we're here to celebrate the graduation of the class of Rainbow students. Rainbow warriors, unleashing them upon the world. But let's examine my statement, as it may have started with a joke, and it made you all smile. But I think we should think about that for a minute, because with every joke there is a shred of truth. We must recognize the fact that while we were busily ravaging textbooks, burning through scantrons, and spending time educating ourselves and oftentimes our professors, the world has changed around us. For most of us, the joke of two men marrying one another would have been a painful one 4 years ago, as Prop 8 stood here in California. In fact, 4 years ago, defeating Prop 8 seemed to be so far off and seemed the only task our communities felt need to rally behind. In 4 years, we've come a long way. Prop 8 is gone. DOMA is gone. Donuts Don't Tell is gone. Exclusions in healthcare are gone. These are monumental steps. And once you exit here this week with a sash and diploma ready to mount, and you are hungrily stepping out into the world, ready to put your talents to market, you mustn't forget that the onus is now on you. For the victories achieved while we were nestled in the safety of academia are great. The victories of our future are yours to take. And there are plenty more victories we need before we all reach equity in the system. For as Sylvia Rivera, a transgender woman, and notably the woman who literally started the Stonewall riots in 1969, has been quoted saying, "All of us were working for so many movements at that time. Everyone was involved with the women's movement, the peace movement, the civil rights movement. We were all radicals. I believe that's what brought it around." These victories aren't achieved individually or by faction. They are achieved as all of our successes have been, together. We need look no further for the victories of the last 4 years, than our own campus. 4 years ago, our queer studies department was barely shaking off the eggshells of its birth, and was less than half of what it is today. 4 years ago, a fresh new sorority unlike any other the Greek system had ever seen, Gamma Rho Lambda, had just initiated our local Epsilon chapter as only the 5th such organization in the country, with it now spanning 13 chapters nationwide. Damn right. 4 years ago, there was no Trans Awareness Week. that for 2 years in a row now had become the most attended LGBTQ programming event in campus history. You better keep it up. 4 years ago, we didn't have the distinct honors of having hosted the QPOC conference or the Transgender Leadership Summit. 4 years ago, we didn't have AS and CSSA resolutions protecting the rights of transgender and gender non-conforming students. 4 years ago, the only queer space was LGBTA, or, if you were one of the truly rainbow-hearted, Martin Poussin's War Room, aka Office, where queer activists staged their fight to establish the permanent space and continued funding for what we now know as the Pride Center. Or, as what a former colleague of mine, Hugo Valencia, and I affectionately and jokingly dubbed the Rainbow Crib. Although not realizing it at the time. But that name has come to mean so much, as it is the place we go to seek safety and comfort, the place where we recharge ourselves, and the place from which so many great ideas, events, programs, discussions, and connections and awareness come from. Well, it is now your turn to leave that crib, but with a mandate. I came here 2 years ago with a mission. Before I even entered my first classroom, I was stalking Serena Lowe, newly minted Pride Center captain, convincing her that there just isn't enough red in that center and I might be able to help with that. I came onto this campus with a zeal and a fervor, after seeing the state of my community, to ensure that this campus, upon my graduation, will be more aware, more educated, and a safer space for my fellow trans siblings. That people can use preferred names and pronouns, not of the majority genders, and not get strange looks. That people can use restrooms of their choosing, and that such facilities will be constructed in the future with recognition that not everyone fits under the labels of man or woman. That not just students, but faculty and staff understand the dynamics of gender, and that much of what academia has to offer on the on the topic, and what they are staunched in as accepted fact, may not be so. But most importantly, to leave behind a legacy of community, not just amongst the T, but amongst us all. And if that allowed me to make it to a class now and then, well, all of that. But I learned something in those 2 years. I learned that I cannot do it alone. I learned that I shouldn't do it alone. I learned about how interwoven our struggles are, and I learned that to only fight for my own is putting me in competition with others equally deserving to have a seat at the table. For fighting for equality and equity is not a unilateral affair. So long as one of us, whether it be immigrant rights, women's rights, POC equality, same-sex rights, and the list goes on, they are all causes needing our fight, needing our love, and needing our passion and understanding. So this be my challenge to you. You are educated. Your certification is your degree. You may think of it as the ticket to a good life. Let me ask you to think of an alternative. Think of it as your ticket to change the world. To paraphrase noted trans activist and actress Laverne Cox, your mere existence as openly gay, lesbian, bi, trans, queer, asexual, and so on person in this world is in and of itself a revolutionary act. Don't take it for granted, as there are those in this room for whom a time when outing oneself as different meant a life of shame and marginalization unlike what we will ever know. It is their tears, their blood, and their passion that afford us this event today. And it is your tears and your blood and your passion that will afford future generations one day the ability to make it so we study queer history as a past fight for equality and not a current struggle for basic rights and recognitions. I will be here for another 3 years earning my master's in social work so that I can become a counselor to the tens of thousands of queer and trans youth that have been cast out, stepped on, set aside, and forgotten simply for who they are. I challenge you, upon leaving here today, to help me build a world where my work becomes redundant. I challenge you to never forget where you come from, and never forget that privilege is something that grants you the ability to wedge the door open for others less fortunate. I challenge you to never cease your education, as the world is ever-changing and you have the responsibility to be an agent of that change. I challenge you to be engaged in the political process, as apathy is their ally, not ours. I challenge you to take what we've experienced here in this microcosm of academia and build the world the way we have built it here together. For in the end, you are the only thing holding you back, as the obstacle will always be that scary thing that when you take your eye off the goal. Do you accept my challenge?
Yeah.